protagonist of this manhwa is one of the most ordinary-looking people you'll ever see, and he works at a logistics center to make a living. Kim Jong-yum kinda hates his job, and you'll soon find out why. When he tries to strike up a casual chat with the robot next to him, the tin can just ignores him and gets straight to work. And that's exactly why he dislikes being here. You see, the entire logistics center is filled with technologically advanced AI robots that handle most of the manual labor. Jong-yum is the one overseeing everything, but there's not a single person to talk to. He sometimes feels pretty down, missing the warmth of human interaction, and occasionally wonders if he's ended up in the wrong place. This all started about 2 months ago, right after he was discharged from the military, and that's when his streak of bad luck began. The first major setback was that his parents moved to Uijeongbu. As a consolation gift for his discharge, they paid the deposit and 6 months' rent for his studio apartment, leaving him to live alone near his old school. Thus began his forced solitary life. Although he was financially stable thanks to government support and the rent coverage from his parents, he decided to take his time looking for a job. With no rush, he hoped to find the best opportunity. But things didn't go as planned, and he faced rejection after rejection before even getting the chance to prove himself. After a month of job hunting, he was going stir-crazy from extreme boredom. One day, while killing time, he ended up venting to his sister about their pathetic brother who couldn't even land a job. Naturally, his sister had a field day trolling him, and during their chat, he heard about delivery companies using AI robots to make work easier, and a lot of people were working as operators in these companies. His interest was piqued, and that's how he ended up in this dump of a place where there's literally no one to talk to. Just as I'm saying this, we hear another person calling out to him. This man looks quite grumpy and unpleasant at first glance. It wouldn't be surprising if he were the manager, as he fits the role perfectly. Anyway, the senior informs his junior that they're out of tuna stock, even though the system still says there's some left. He tells our boy to check the warehouse for any missing stock. Of course, Jong-yum complies with a fake smile plastered on his face. Let's be honest, Jong-yum finds those robots way more warmer than his cold-as-shit senior. Anyway, once Kim heads into the warehouse, the door behind him starts to close. He quickly begins searching for the tuna his senior mentioned. After rummaging around, he spots the stock, climbs up a riser, and grabs it. Just then, he hears a loud thud of the door to the warehouse slamming shut. He tries turning the doorknob, but it's stuck. He calls his manager Shin, but there's no answer. The thought of calling 911 crosses his mind, but he decides against it, because he's not stuck in a freezing freezer, so it wouldn't be worth the hassle. Instead, he takes a selfie and sends it to his sisters, letting them know he's trapped in the warehouse. At first, she teases him about his situation, but then she suddenly says she just heard a building collapsing outside her house. Of course, the brother gets worried about his sister and quickly calls her phone number. When she picks up, she doesn't say anything, and he wonders if she's just pulling a prank. But just as he's thinking that, the entire warehouse starts to shake, and the emergency alarm blares. The place descends into chaos, and he hears announcements telling everyone to evacuate quickly. Stuck in the warehouse with no idea what's happening outside, he starts banging on the main door with his empty fists, but his frantic pounding gets no response. Desperate, he decides to call 911, only to find that the cellular signal is down. He's seriously losing his mind now, and the thought that there might be a full-blown war going on outside is freaking him out. Suddenly, he notices something pounding on the main gate from the outside, each impact leaving a giant dent in the massive steel door as if it were nothing but a cardboard cutout. His hands tremble as he pulls it back from the doorknob, instinctively knowing that shit is going haywire outside, and if he makes a single sound, he's certain he's done for. Sweating profusely, he collapses to his knees, and thankfully, the pounding on the gate eventually stops. However, the commotion and screams outside are still loud enough to terrify him. 3 days pass since that unfortunate day, and he's still stuck inside the warehouse, surviving on the available food. Since no one has come looking for him, he's convinced that something major must have happened outside. He wonders if there's a war going on, and by now, he's almost relieved to be stuck in here, thinking he might have been a goner if he had been outside. The alarm that used to blare constantly has been silent since yesterday, which is a relief. At least he can sleep now. But he's unsure how much longer he can hold out, especially with his battery running low, and this might be his last note to the outside world. He's praying that a soldier or someone from his country finds him soon and keeps the family safe. Just when he thought things couldn't get crazier, a system window pops up in front of him, telling him he's been chosen, and to check his awakened abilities. At first, Jong-yum thinks he might be hallucinating, but then another window appears, saying he has acquired his own personal subspace for storing objects. He starts to wonder if there was some kind of cocaine in the tuna cans he's been eating for the past 3 days. Another digital notification pops up, saying that the target has been designated and asking if he wants to store it. Without hesitation, he confirms, and suddenly he begins to fall, landing hard on his butt on solid ground outside. He scrambles to his feet and looks around, only to see rubble and debris everywhere, and everything is in total destruction. He spots his senior lying dead on the ground. While the system windows keep on flashing, our boy is busy puking his guts out after seeing his senior's lifeless body. The system then states that a suitable operating system for him has been found, and it's currently being installed. Suddenly he hears footsteps approaching from behind, and there is a huge shadow cast by a figure behind him, and he is pretty darn sure that this shadow is not of a human. As the camera pans out, we see an orc-like monster with sharp fangs and a giant blood-soaked body. Jongyum sweats profusely as he tries to calm himself, desperately hoping his fears aren't true. He tries to stay optimistic, convincing himself that the loud roar he heard 3 days back might be from a gorilla or a bear. But he doesn't dare look back at the thing behind him, and instead bolts as fast as he can, running for his life. His panic reaches new heights as he realizes there's a literal monster hunting him down. He runs frantically, even stepping on someone's innards in this wild dash. He has no idea why there's an orc-like creature here, or why it's so determined to catch him. But he knows one thing for sure. If he doesn't escape soon, he's going to get caught. Suddenly, the system window pops up, announcing that synchronization is complete and asking if he would like to enter the subspace. With no hesitation, Jongyum quickly says yes. After all, the monster is almost upon him. Just as the creature's hand swings at him, he jumps into the portal. While he is finally safe on the other side of the portal, the monster is stuck on the other side of the portal and could do nothing other than groan in frustration. Jongyum gets confused and wonders why the monster can't enter this place. A hovering drone confirms that nothing can enter his subspace without his permission, because he is the master of it. The drone explains that the subspace is entirely under his control. Jongyum is stunned to see the drone talking to him, and he has a strange sense of déjà vu. When he looks around, he finds himself back in the PAX's fulfillment center warehouse, but this time it's part of his new subspace. The entire place is filled with the same robots as before. The system announces that, since he's entered the subspace for the first time, he'll receive a reward for completing the tutorial, which is a 1-mana stone. The stone materializes in his hand, but before he can figure out what it is, the monster outside starts slamming against the portal. The noise startles him, and he almost forgets that he was being chased by a literal monster. He panics once again, and frantically asks the system if he's really sure the monsters can't get inside. The system confirms that nothing can enter the subspace without his permission. The system window flashes once again, stating that the PAX Fulfillment Center is a 5-story building with a total floor area of 10,000 pyong, approximately 33,000 square meters. It holds every product needed to improve the lives of customers. The current shipping speed is 60 kilometers per hour, and it can handle 1 shipment at a time with the shipping size limit of 2 meters. Jongyum is just as clueless as all of us about what this information even entails. The system then further confuses him by revealing that there are only 2 minutes left until maintenance. Confused, Jongyum asks if the logistics center will shut down after 2 minutes. The drone confirms this and explains that he can use the mana stone in order to supply energy and maintain the facilities in the subspace. Since he currently has 1 mana stone, it can power the entire facility for the next 24 hours. Jongyum is amazed by the efficiency of the mana stone, and the drone promptly explains that when the PAX Fulfillment Center was stored in the subspace, the energy supply system was modified to fit the subspace environment. Therefore, the facility runs on mana stones. Jongyum asks if all this is even possible or if it's just some sci-fi bullshit. Suddenly, the lights in the facility go out, and the drone starts flashing lights. The PAX system explains that the energy supply to the facility has been cut off, and if the energy isn't restored, PAX Fresh and other products could start to rot. Apparently, PAX Fresh is one of the services that ensures the storage and delivery of everything from fresh vegetables to meat and prepared meals in frozen and refrigerated conditions. Jongyum looks back at the monster glaring at him and realizes that outside is practically a war zone. In such a situation, food is crucial for survival. With the power to the freezers and refrigerators cut off, it's a huge problem. He asks the drone if the mana stone is really a substitute for electricity. The drone confirms this, so Jongyum asks how he can obtain more mana stones. The drone replies that he can acquire mana stones from beings of another world. Well, it's clear that our boy is not exactly thrilled to go against this muscle-bound monster who can literally rip him apart in one fell swoop. He tells his drone to use the mana stone for now, and he promptly heads into the facility to grab some weapons. Once inside, he gathers a handful of weapons, and the system window flashes the price for each weapon. With the limited supplies he has, he's concerned about running out of stock if he directly throws them at the monster. He is also not sure whether these blades can even penetrate the monster's thick skin. He decides that wounding and killing the monster slowly might be a better approach. Since the monster can't enter his subspace, he doesn't need to take it down in one go. Instead, He'll work on injuring it gradually, making sure not to waste his resources or risk running out of weapons too soon. Jongyum throws the axe at the monster, but it only grazes the monster's body, which only further aggravates its rage. With his initial plan not working as hoped, and realizing he doesn't have many weapons left, he decides to try throwing the heavy axe once more, hoping it will make a more significant impact. He asks the pack system how much stock is left for the axe, and he is surprised to find out there are 15 remaining. He was expecting only a few, so this number catches him off guard. He quickly inquires about the location of these axes. Once Jongyum reaches the storage area, he is shocked to find out that these axes are duplicating infinity. The pack system explains that these items are created using a process that allows them to be duplicated indefinitely. While they can be damaged or altered, they cannot be depleted. This revelation shocks Jongyum, because if what the system is saying is true, then he has access to an infinite stock of weapons. Surprisingly, the pack system confirms this. With this newly discovered knowledge, Jongyum is relieved that he no longer needs to worry about running out of weapons. He can freely throw them at the monster without concern for depleting his stock. He is sure that his shoulders might give out before the monster does, but at least he has a seemingly endless supply of weapons. The system then shares an interesting tidbit. Apparently, our boy doesn't have to throw the weapons manually, because he can automatically ship products from the subspace to the outside world. The system explains that shipping is only possible every 30 seconds, but it can be sped up by improving the skills. Jongyum quickly asks how to throw his weapons, and the system says all he has to do is think about the registered product and say ship for it to be automatically sent. Right as the system explains this, Jongyum promptly says the word ship, and an axe flies through the air at incredible speed and smashes into the monster's disgusting face, taking it down effortlessly. The axe was thrown by the drone, and when Jongyum asks about the throw speed, the system replies that the default shipping speed is 60 kilometers per hour. Now it makes sense to Jongyum what the system meant by shipping speed before. The system then reveals that if he wants to change the speed, he can adjust it up to a maximum of 75 km/h. To go beyond that, he'll need to enhance his skills. Naturally, Jongyum asks the system how to enhance his skills, and the system explains that he can do so using mana stones. Speaking of mana stones, our boy quickly remembers the monster he just defeated, and he realizes he'll need to fight more of these creatures to advance. He quickly grabs some gear from the facility. The first thing he grabs is lightweight combat boots costing around 50,000 KRW and matching tactical combat pants for about 78,000 KRW. Once he's equipped, he also buys a detailed map of the Seoul metropolitan area and a permanent marker. He draws a circle around the Gwangjin district and then marks the neighboring districts as well in a certain order. With his plan in place, he decides to start with the nearest marked district and work his way towards his final destination, Ijeongbu, where he hopes to reach his parents. Since Jongyum is starting from Gunpo, and he does not even have a car, he realizes it's going to be a long journey to reach his parents. Although it's not as fast as a car or motorcycle, a regular bicycle is still pretty valuable in a post-apocalyptic world, and if I'm being honest, it's practically a Lamborghini at that moment. He hops onto the bike and starts pedaling through the desolate world. After about 30 minutes, night falls, and he's managed to take down almost 12 orcs during this short journey. He then reveals to us that he has learned one valuable thing after taking down 12 orcs. But before he could explain anything about his discovery, a monster suddenly appears and tries to attack him. Jongyum quickly retreats into his subspace, leaving the monster outside. While the monster is immobilized, he uses his shipment ability again to deliver the axe with incredible speed. Unfortunately, the axe misses its mark slightly and only injures the monster's shoulder. To use his shipment ability again, Jongyum has to wait 30 seconds for the cooldown, and there's also a range limit of 10 meters. Despite these downsides, he's learned that his skills are pretty amazing and can be improved by gathering mana stones and upgrading them. Besides shipment, Pax's ability has other applications, and we will figure out soon what that is. Suddenly, the monster notices movement behind him, and when he turns around, he sees the axe flying back into the portal, and then it comes back, hitting him in the face again, sealing his fate on the spot. This is actually the second application of Pax's shipment ability, which is also known as product retrieval. It automatically brings back dispatched items, which is just as convenient as the shipment ability. Jongyum uses his retrieval ability once more to get the mana stone from the monster. He is kind of curious why he can't simply retrieve the mana stone like this without killing the monster. He then asks Pax the same question, and learns that he can use his retrieve skill on the stone because it belongs to him only after he kills the monster. Nevertheless, Jongyum steps out of his subspace and reveals to us another piece of crucial information he had learned about this apocalyptic world. Apparently, the bizarre orcs aren't the only creatures ravaging the planet. There are also winged monsters, and he knows it's going to take a lot to hunt one of those down. Suddenly, he hears cries for help. But before he can figure out who is calling, the scene transitions to this man, who goes by the name Choi, desperately trying to run. He's so exhausted that each step seems heavier than the last, and a flying creature is trying to hunt him down. The monster swoops in, slamming the man from behind and sending him crashing to the ground in agony. There's another person behind the injured man, but before this another guy can help his friend up, the monster lands right in front of him and blocks his path. Its ferocious mouth is drooling, as if human flesh is the most delicious thing in this area. But strangely enough, the monster doesn't attack the man standing in front of it. Instead, it turns its gaze toward Choi, who is lying on the ground, groaning in pain. The man is bewildered to see that the monster isn't attacking him and realizes that this creature was targeting Choi all along, likely because Choi is smaller and seems like an easier target. He has no clue what he can do against this giant monster to save his friend, because all he has is this little knife, and he is not sure if this knife can even be used to distract this monster. Just then, the ring of a bicycle bell echoes through the area, and not surprisingly, it's our boy speeding toward them, but these two have no idea who or what is coming their way. Before they can process what's happening, they watch in shock as the monster that was hunting them down is struck by a projectile, sending it sliding across the ground from the force of the blow. The monster was knocked down by a single throw of an axe, leaving both of the men struggling to process what they had just seen. Jongyum quickly checks if they are all right, but they are still in awe, their jaws hanging open as they try to grasp how someone on a bicycle managed to defeat a flying wyvern with just an axe. The two of them quickly ask Jongyum if he is a soldier, and they also begin bowing their heads in respect, grateful for saving their lives. Jongyum, glad that they are safe, answers their question by pointing to his uniform. He explains that he is an employee of PAX FC, and they can see he is wearing the company's uniform. This revelation shocks them even more. They had assumed he was a seasoned soldier given his impressive skills and appearance. Even if he wasn't a soldier, his abilities are so extraordinary that if they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they'd never have believed that someone could take down a wyvern with a simple axe throw while riding a bicycle. Jongyum is surprised to learn that these people are familiar with the concept of abilities. One of them quickly agrees, mentioning that he has an awakened ability himself, though it's just a modest driving ability. Given the circumstances, he hasn't had a proper chance to use it. The other person, Choi, begins to laugh and admits he feels a bit envious because he hasn't awakened any ability himself. Jongyum then asks if there are any other people around. Choi confirms that there are not, explaining that they are in Block C, which has a logistics center. A lot of people gathered here, but unfortunately, monsters did too. Most of the people were attacked, killed, or eaten alive. Only around 10 to 15 survivors are left, and they are relatively isolated in Block E's underground terminal. He further explains that they were looking for a road that vehicles could use, and they also wanted to gather some daily necessities, but suddenly they were attacked by the monster. The other person then suggests that instead of talking here, Jongyum should join them. He is welcome to come with them to their living quarters on the 4th floor of the basement. The monsters have never attacked that area, so they can sleep comfortably there. They also offer some light snacks. Jongyum considers the offer, and we can tell he is definitely interested in seeing the vehicles they mentioned earlier, and is in desperate need of information about functioning vehicles. Eventually, he decides to accept their invitation, even though he's unsure if he should fully trust them. As they begin to walk away, we take one last look at the dead monster lying on the ground. That is when our boy retrieves the mana stone from inside the monster and quickly tucks it into his subspace. He's glad that these two don't know about his ability, as it means he has a backup plan if things go wrong and can escape into subspace if necessary. A while later, they finally make it to the basement, where they see a man who appears to have just taken down an orc all by himself. Choi quickly runs over to his friend, asking what happened and if everything is all right. The orc killer reassures him that everything is fine, explaining that the orc must have wandered in by accident. Fortunately, it didn't see them, so they were able to take it out easily. No one is injured, but they can no longer be sure that the place is safe. On the other hand, Jongyum feels a bit terrified by how dangerous this place is, but he quickly snaps out of his thoughts when the orc killer asks about him. Choi explains that Jongyum is the one who saved them from the wyvern and used to work for PAX FC. He also mentions that Jongyum is quite strong, having killed the wyvern with a thrown axe from a distance. Everyone is amazed and curious about what kind of ability he might have. At that moment, a woman rushes toward him, and she is absolutely thrilled that he saved Youngsu and Byung-chul. She is so grateful that she begins doing a happy dance. The others start to gather around him, showering him with praise. Jongyum tries to downplay it, saying he was just doing what he had to do. Just as our lad is getting so much attention, Choi tries to disperse the crowd, telling them not to tease the young guy. Just then, the orc killer guy speaks up, saying that everyone here has been working together for over 10 years, and that Yongsu and Byungchul are like family to him. He's genuinely grateful to meet someone who saved his family, and introduces himself as Lee Jin-mok, the center manager of Daehyun Express Terminal. He even bows his head in respect for saving his two friends. Once the pleasantries are over, Jin-mok gives Jung-yum a brief rundown of the place. He explains that while they can't guarantee the safety of the location, it's much more comfortable than the outside world. They have food and water supplies from the logistics center, so Jung-yum can eat as much as he wants without feeling embarrassed and can make himself at home. Jin-mok also mentions that they have plenty of supplies and can get more from the logistics center if needed. However, Young-soo interrupts to point out that the logistics center they're talking about has suddenly disappeared. Of course, everyone is left wide-eyed and their mouths are hanging open at this absurd news. Mok Jin quickly asks what on earth this even means. Choi confirms it again, saying it's literally gone, and explains that this is why they were chased by the wyvern. The others in the group refuse to believe this and question how such a massive building could simply disappear. Mok Jin then finally comes to terms with the reality, and also tells his other friends that if the monsters roaming around can be real, then it's not too far-fetched to believe a building could vanish into nothingness. Meanwhile, Jung-yum stands silently, and I'm not quite sure if the disappearance of that logistics center has something to do with our boy's subspace. Anyway, the manager tries to keep everyone calm and tells them that no matter what, they need to dig through the tunnel. If they stay here, things will only get worse. He encourages everyone not to be discouraged, saying that their time has just come a little early and that they will start heading into the tunnel as soon as possible. The woman from before, fired up, tries to motivate the others by reminding them that, even without the logistics center, they still need to think about their next move. So she insists they must force their way through. Jung-yum turns to the manager, asking what force our way through actually means. The manager explains that everyone here has homes elsewhere, and vehicles are essential for travel. However, with the roads blocked, they need to find a way through. Jung-yum perks up at the mention of the vehicles and asks for more info. The manager confirms they do have working vehicles, but explains that all the roads are blocked. The golf course obstructs the way to the north, containers block the east, and the southern Yangdong Expressway is completely destroyed. The tunnel to the west is the only exit, but unfortunately, a group of wyverns has taken over that tunnel. Until now, everyone has been surviving by getting food and water from the logistics center, but now they have to force their way through. The manager tells Jung-yum that he doesn't have to go through the tunnel since the blocked roads are for vehicles, and there are ways to escape on foot or by bicycle. However, Jung-yum quickly responds that he needs a vehicle as well, and thinks it's best to go through the tunnel. The manager does not try to change our boy's mind any further, and simply says he's welcome to join them if he's up for it. Jung-yum smiles and says he'd be glad to work with them. Jung-yum also thinks in his mind that it would be better if he kept his abilities hidden. While the group seems nice enough, he can't ignore that they've been struggling to survive while he was safe in the center. They might have run out of food and supplies, and he's sure they won't be upfront about their situation. He understands their need for secrecy, and plans to stay cautious as well. He then turns to the manager and says he wants to check out the situation with the tunnel and the wyvern. He's planning to go scouting, but in reality, he just wants to use his abilities to demolish that horde of monsters to rack up some sweet mana stones. The scene then flashes back a little. After taking down a bunch of monsters, he saved up 5 magic stones. With these, he can cut the cooldown on his shipping ability down to 5 seconds. That's when he sees 3 new shipping abilities. The first one is Precise Delivery, which, as the name suggests, locks onto the target and guarantees a hit. The second is Simultaneous Delivery, which lets him ship up to 2 items at once. The third is Automatic Delivery, which allows him to automatically deliver designated items, with the timing interval being adjustable. As cool as these abilities sound, each one costs about 10 stones, and our guy is totally looking forward to see them in action, though he's still a bit unclear on what exactly automatic delivery does. In the present moment, he's grinning from ear to ear, thrilled that he saved up the magic stones, and looking forward to his scouting mission to earn some more, or so he thought. His dream of purchasing fantastic abilities is quickly dashed when he finds himself stuck with Youngso, who was one of the guys he had saved earlier. When our boy asks him why he's tagging along, Youngso says it's too dangerous to go outside alone, but Jung-yum reminds him that he was the one who was being chased by a wyvern. But Youngso insists it doesn't matter because he can't let him go alone. Besides, he is confident our guy will save him again if needed. Our guy then remembers Youngso mentioning he had awakened a driver's ability, so he asks him if he can see a message window or something like that. Youngso says he hasn't seen any message window or anything like that, but he has a gut feeling that he has indeed awakened an ability, and it just hasn't fully matured yet. Well, this info isn't exactly reassuring to our boy, and he's starting to feel pretty worried. As night falls, their bike zooms down the road at insane speeds, Jongyum is literally sweating in fear as he watches Youngso literally steer the bike with one leg while trying to balance on it. When he asks why Youngso is driving like this, the man responds that there are so many cars on the road, and it's hard to see. That's when Youngso spots a wyvern up ahead. Our guy quickly tells him to stop since he can't see a thing. It looks like the monster has finally caught up to their presence, and as it glares at them, Youngso asks what they should do. Just then, a projectile hits the monster, taking it down in one blow, leaving Youngso completely baffled. Meanwhile, our guy calmly tells him to keep his head straight and not look back. While he is saying that, he sneakily retrieves the mana stone and stores it in his subspace. Finally, Youngso points out that he can see the tunnel over there. He slams on the brakes, but before our boy can ask him why he stopped in the middle of the road, the reason behind their abrupt halt becomes clear when they see a ton of monsters crawling around the area, and Youngso is absolutely terrified, and I would not be surprised if he has sharded in his pants already. As one of the monsters starts to walk toward them, Youngso is pretty sure their game is over. Even with the electric bikes, there's no way they can outrun this many wyverns. Just as Youngso braces himself for the worst, our guy decides he has no choice but to use his subspace ability. He quickly calls up his system, dumps his mana stones to cut down the cooldown from 30 seconds to only 5 seconds. Youngso confusingly asks what the heck he's doing, but our guy doesn't bother to explain. Meanwhile, the monster lets out a deafening roar, and every monster in the vicinity starts closing in from all directions. Just in the nick of time, Jongyum yells, "Ship!" and a projectile comes crashing down, taking out the monster and saving Youngso. He glances back, still anxious and panicked, and is left wide-eyed when he spots a portal behind them. After taking down the monster, our guy quickly grabs the stones from it and tells Youngso to stick close, because that's the only way he can keep him safe. Youngso agrees, though he's completely clueless about what's going on and why there's a logistics center behind them. Just then, more monsters show up, and one of them is quickly dealt with by our guy's axes. The more monsters get ready and quickly charge at them. Youngso panics and begins stepping back, and eventually dives into our boy's subspace. The monster, on the other hand, brutally slams into the subspace barrier, while Youngso stumbles back and falls down to the ground. The monster regains its composure and charges again, but our guy slips into his subspace just in time. The monster slams into the barrier once more and is soon taken down by an axe, dropping right away. Meanwhile, Youngso looks at this scene in awe, as if he has just witnessed a miracle. He can barely believe his eyes, and from the logistics center to the axes flying around, he's not sure what amazes him more. But he is sure of one thing, that for our boy, these monsters are nothing more than pests, and this tunnel is just an annoyance he can clear out without breaking a sweat. He then reflects on how everyone in the basement wanted to use the delivery vehicle to carry food and move relatively safely, and the tunnel is just a part of the route. Even if they get through safely, the monsters are still out there, but for our guy, it's different. He really just needs the vehicle as a means of transportation, since he can deal with anything with ease. Youngso has even started to feel a bit jealous as well, because with an ability like that, he could easily get to his family as soon as possible. He's not sure how far our boy plans to travel that he is feeling the need to use a vehicle. Suddenly, they notice the monsters starting to run away. Jongyum is fascinated to see that these reptiles are pretty smart, because they're fleeing instead of charging into danger. As our guy is retrieving the stones, Youngso notices this blue stone hovering in the air and promptly asks what it is. Our boy curiously asks if he's never seen a mana stone before. Youngso admits he hasn't, so Jongyum explains that he uses them to enhance his abilities. Youngso finally gets it and wonders if he'll get a chance to try it himself someday. Now it finally makes sense to our boy as to why Youngso didn't bother to extract the mana stone from the orc's corpse earlier. Anyway, Youngso points out that with abilities like this, our boy could easily solo this entire tunnel single-handedly. Jongyum then explains that he didn't come here with the intention of clearing out the tunnel. He just wanted to check it out. If it seemed doable, he'd break through quietly and didn't mean to show off his abilities like that. Youngso then apologizes for tagging along, but our guy reassures him that there's no need to worry. He didn't know the way to the tunnel anyway, so if he had come alone, he wouldn't have been able to get through. He then suggests it's time to head back since the wyvern has retreated for now, but might attack again soon. That's when Youngso asks how far our guy plans to travel that he feels the need for a vehicle. Jongyum explains that he's trying to reach his family, and his final destination is Uijeongbu, near the Gangnam district. This news takes Youngso by surprise because his own destination is on the same route to Gangnam. He reveals to Jongyum that he's heading to Indeokwan, which is on the way, and asks if it would be too much trouble to let him tag along until they reach Indeokwan. Jongyum isn't sure how to respond, but Youngso continues, saying that even if he gets through the tunnel, he's not confident he can make it home safely. His driving ability isn't much help in combat, but since Jongyum can fight off monsters, he might have a better chance of reaching his family. Youngso then promises to help our boy reach Gangnam faster than anyone else, and swears he won't be a burden on their journey. He's even willing to provide food for our boy along the way. Jongyum starts to see some real value in this partnership. Youngso's driving skills are beyond doubt, and more importantly, if this guy is on his side, he won't spill the beans about his abilities. It's a win-win situation because Jongyum fears that if his abilities became known, there's no telling what people might do, maybe even try to assassinate him, though that might be overthinking it. Still, better safe than sorry. So, all in all, our guy finally gives Youngso the green light to tag along, and the dude perks up like a kid in a candy store. Jongyum then tells him he'll handle the tunnel and makes it clear that Youngso should keep his abilities a secret. He even asks him to make sure everyone else stays out of his way. Youngso eagerly agrees, promising to ensure that everyone cooperates. He's super positive about it, ready to do his part. But things didn't go as Jongyum hoped, because that foolish guy went ahead and told everyone that our boy would be able to break through the tunnel on his own using his awakened abilities. All they need to do is wait outside until he is done, and then they can move forward. Jongyum is left wide-eyed and clueless, seeing that Youngso just spilled the beans on what was supposed to be a secret. The others are astonished by this news and are eager to see how Jongyum is going to pull it off. Youngso, on the other hand, is more than happy to explain, while Jongyum curses his rotten luck, realizing he's now in a tough spot. In the end, Jongyum steps up and says that by tomorrow morning, he'll have the tunnel cleared for everyone to leave. In his mind, helping them is the best plan he has, considering they still have food supplies, which should keep things relatively calm. Once the supplies run out, chaos will likely erupt among everyone, so it's wise to clear the tunnel and ensure everyone can leave safely. That's when the manager calls out to Jongyum, saying he won't pry into his abilities or ask any questions about them. Instead, the manager respects him for the decision he has made to help everyone. He offers some food supplies from their reserves to Jongyum, which leaves him quite taken aback, because this much generosity is just too much. The manager explains that since Jongyum risked his life to scout the tunnel, all they can offer in return is a bit of food. Now that he's even clearing the tunnel for them, they feel they can't repay him enough for his kindness. They apologize, saying all they can offer right now are a few words of gratitude. Jongyum tries to explain that he did it for himself because he wanted to, and that they shouldn't have to go to such lengths to help him. He insists that the food must be meant for their families and tells them to keep it. Youngso, however, steps in and tells our boy to just take it, and further points out that rejecting the food would be too harsh for everyone involved. Youngso also reminds Jongyum that he has a family too, just like everyone else. At that moment, Jongyum sees how excited everyone is to reunite with their families, and it makes him feel a pang of sadness because doesn't want to let them down. As everyone enjoys their time together, the next day arrives. When they finally reach the tunnel entrance, Jongyum tells everyone to stay back. He then starts pedaling his bike into the tunnel, determined to clear it out and come back. As he gets closer to the tunnel, he begins to spot the monsters. But before we see him battling them, the scene flashes back to his childhood. We see young Jongyum with a sore eye from a fight with his sister. He complains about it to his father, and it leads to another argument with his sister, and they eventually start beating the shit out of each other in front of their father. That is when his father points out how close they seem to be. His father then reflects that he was an only child of his parents, so he always envied the bond between siblings. He tells them that they have no idea how envious he is of their relationship, and even though they may argue now, they'll soon realize how truly precious family is. Suddenly, their mother bursts into the room, leading to a hearty argument between their parents. It's at this moment that Jongyum feels the warmth of family. The scene then transitions into the last night, where our boy is recalling all of these moments with his family after seeing how everyone is overjoyed at the prospect of finally reuniting with their families, knowing that Jongyum would clear the path for them. They spent the entire night like that, basking in the warmth of anticipation. When midnight strikes and everyone falls asleep, Youngso wakes up to use the bathroom. Noticing that Jongyum is missing, he heads outside and asks the patrolling guards about him. They report that Jongyum said he was going out for some fresh air a while ago. He then further walks forward and looks around and finally spots our boy. He quickly asks why Jongyum can't just sleep, and our boy replies that he can't sleep there. Just as Youngso looks in front, he is absolutely boggled out of his mind to see that the entire vehicle is filled to the brim with food and supplies. Youngso finds this ridiculous and quickly asks why he is giving away so much stuff. Our boy just casually mentions that he only loaded about half to avoid making the vehicle too heavy. But this amount should be more than enough for everyone. Youngso is even more astonished when Jongyum says this is the last vehicle he had to load. The realization hits him quite hard because if this is the last vehicle, then our boy must have packed the other 15 vehicles with the same amount of supplies as well. Jongyum quickly tells him to keep this a secret from everyone else. The man, however, points out that if he is giving away all of this stuff, what will they use during their journey? Our boy just casually says they still have plenty of supplies left. The man is left astonished to hear this, realizing that the amount of supplies our boy just generously gave away is more than what you will find in an entire logistics center. He can't fathom how much Jong-yeom must have in stock to give away so much. We return to the present, where Jong-yeom is effortlessly demolishing monsters like it's no big deal. As he fights, he thinks about how much easier it would be if he could just put all the people into his subspace and carry them to the other side. Unfortunately, his system states that with the current subspace level, it's not possible. But if he achieves subspace level 2, he could accommodate up to 20 people. To reach that level, he'd need to gather at least 100 mana stones. Jong-yeom quickly does a mental tally and notes that there are at most about 40 monsters, with a few running away. Given the numbers, leveling up here isn't feasible. He still needs to think of another way to level up, because he eventually wants to put his own family into the subspace. Suddenly, Jong-yeom notices something unusual among the fleeing monsters. A closer look reveals a particularly jacked-up version of Wyvern, and I can tell that this is some kind of boss-level monster. Even Jong-yeom isn't sure what he's dealing with. We finally cut back to the outside, where everyone is anxiously waiting for Jong-yeom to come out. Some are starting to worry if he's okay inside that tunnel. They then finally spot him emerging from the tunnel, effortlessly pedaling his bicycle as if he's just out for a casual ride. His uniform is smeared in blood, and the group looks on anxiously. But they soon breathe a sigh of relief when they see a smile spreading across our boy's face. They burst into a joyous dance, celebrating the successful completion of their mission. Well, it seems like it's finally time for everyone to part ways and reunite with their loved ones. They express their gratitude to the manager for sticking with them until the very end, and hope that he gets safely home as well. Jong-yeom hints that if they run into any trouble, they should try opening the cargo hold, as he has prepared a little gift that might be helpful. Everyone is intrigued and as well as curious about the gift, but they eventually get into their respective cargo trucks and start making their way through the traffic. Once they cross the tunnel, they wave their goodbyes one last time and head down their separate roads. We then see Jong-yeom sitting in the passenger seat, still preoccupied with the monster he saw in the tunnel. He's unsure if it was actually a wyvern, as it fled so quickly that he didn't get a good look at it. He then starts wondering if the wyvern he spotted was a leader, or maybe just an adult version of these monsters. But his thoughts are cut off by a weird crunching noise coming from under their truck. When we look near the tires, we see that the trucks run over some dead bodies, and the driver's face is full of sadness from hearing the bones breaking. Even Jong-yeom can see the regret on his friend's face, but they've got no choice but to keep moving. With bodies and wrecks everywhere, there's no clear path, and it's a mess no matter where they turn. He thinks to himself that if his discharge had been delayed by just 3 months, he might have been one of those dead soldiers. The whole situation is worse than they thought, with monsters still munching on the corpses. Suddenly, Young-so calls out to him, which snaps our boy out of his thoughts. Once he looks ahead, we see that the road is blocked up ahead. Young-so points out that the barbed wire looks like it was set up by the military to block something, and they'll have to take another route. He mentions there should be another bridge they can cross. But that is when our boy spots something at the end of the blocked bridge. And just as we take a closer look, we notice a new type of monsters we have never seen before. Now it finally makes sense what the military was trying to block. While Young-so is panicking and considering turning the car around, our boy sees this as an opportunity to level up his subspace. He then notices a narrow sidewalk on the road, perfectly blocked on both sides. He quickly tells his friend not to turn the car around and asks if he can pass the vehicle through that sidewalk. Jong-yeom explains that he's come up with a good plan to get through this situation without having to turn back, and he's absolutely thrilled and excited about pushing this truck through a literal pedestrian sidewalk. Young-soo was shocked by such a suicidal choice, especially when an orc appeared in front among the hounds and started scattering the mutant hounds. The monsters didn't seem to be friendly with each other at all. Even though the orc had an advantage in size and strength, the mutated dogs were simply more numerous. Poor orc didn't stand a chance against such a hungry pack, and their hollow mouths didn't stop them from tearing flesh. Our two could only see the blood and flesh flying in every direction. Poor Young-soo was really scared, and even knowing the abilities of our hero doubted the sanity of the idea of going straight there. Just in case, he asked what Young-soo meant and whether he is really going to cross this bridge. Our hero was more than confident in his abilities and thought it was even easier than his frightened friend thought. While Young-soo was trying to gain courage, Jong-yeom asked him a strange question. Had he ever heard of a game where 3 races wage war against each other? It's a certain space strategy game called Stark. But Young-soo was much older than our hero and didn't know anything about this game. Jong-yeom decided to tell him a little about it. This game had content where players could play on customizable maps and change settings as they wanted to have fun. Among these maps, our hero's favorite was the one where he had to fend off swarms of monsters using limited units and terrain. And as Jongyum thought, the current situation was very similar to that map. Of course, Yongsoo had no idea why he was being told all this, but his understanding was not necessary in this situation. All he had to do was to do as Jongyum told him. To begin with, Yongsoo had to turn the car around and back up to the barbed wire barrier, of course tearing down the barbed wire, making as much noise as possible, thus attracting the attention of the monster hounds so busy with their bloody feast. Then it was Jongyum's turn to get down to business. He activated his system and resorted to the last skill he wasn't even going to use. But now was the most suitable situation. He unlocked the auto ship skill by spending 10 magic stones. He immediately asked Pax to spend all the remaining magic stones to increase shipping speed. Pax did so without delay, and now the shipping speed had increased to 100 kilometers per hour. Now that everything was ready, Jongyum could invite the mutant hounds that had been eating orc to come to him. After a hearty lunch, it is playtime. The unsuspecting dogs rushed forward, but they didn't make it in time. The double-door refrigerator quickly demolished them completely. As you can see, the game was not fun for the hounds. It didn't end with the first refrigerator, and more came after it. In just a few seconds, Jongyum received 12 magic stones, and he was very happy about it. The reinforced shipping range and precision delivery he had improved while he was still clearing the tunnel. Jongyum might be throwing axes instead of refrigerators now, and together with the recently improved speed of precision delivery, it could be quite effective. But while using precision delivery last time, Jongyum found out that this skill doesn't track the target all the way through. Instead, precision delivery only slightly corrects the direction according to the movement of the target. This could be a big problem against these hounds that are not just fast, but incredibly quick. Even an axe flying at 100 kilometers per hour can be dodged by these hounds when attacked from afar. Moreover, these creatures are so fearless that they will not stop even if one of their kind dies right next to them. Considering the current situation, where the delivery interval is 2.5 seconds, axes will not be enough to hold off their onslaught. But the refrigerator, thanks to its size, is perfectly suited to destroy several targets in a single shipment. Not only is the fridge wide, but it's also heavy enough to take hounds down with just a graze. On top of that, the automatic delivery he had just improved proved to be very convenient. Jongyum didn't even need to watch the battlefield. The system automatically destroyed any approaching threats. For now, our hero could just rest and relax. The hounds did not give up despite not even being able to get close to Jongyum. All they had to do was howl with rage and keep trying. Although, let's be honest, against the flying refrigerators, they didn't stand a chance. As the battle continued, Yongsoo had the carelessness to look back. He nearly lost his jaw from surprise when he realized what he saw. He thought that Jongyum could only throw axes, but here were refrigerators that were beyond his imagination. Okay, one flying refrigerator was something he could still imagine, but a new flying refrigerator every 2 seconds was unbelievable. Besides, why would the logistics center keep so many refrigerators in stock? Yongsoo began to wonder if it could be that the stock being retrieved was coming out as new products, even if axes are indeed retrieved and reused by his system. But how it could work with refrigerators was not clear to him. Yongsoo just couldn't believe it and froze in place. He didn't even notice when Jongyum came back to him and asked if he wanted something to eat. Yongsoo finally realized what was going on and asked a question to make sure. He wondered if it was possible that Jongyum's supply was infinite. Jongyum was a bit surprised by such a question. He thought that Yongsoo had figured it out a long time ago. But he was wrong. All this time, Yongsoo had thought that Jongyum was collecting axes after using them to recharge them, and couldn't even think that he actually had an infinite amount of them. In fact, Jongyum did indeed collect the axes after use with the system, but only so that they wouldn't lie on the road and accidentally injure someone. Hearing this didn't make Yongsoo feel any better. He still couldn't believe that items could be infinite. When he came to his senses a little, our hero asked again what he wanted to eat. Yongsoo had had a difficult day of emotional turmoil today, and a Coke Zero and a donut was more than enough for him. While they were eating quietly in peace to themselves, behind them, the delivery system was mercilessly scattering hounds. Yongsoo was a little ashamed of his stupidity and that he had underestimated Jongyum's abilities, but he was still grateful for the food, even if it was infinite. Our hero was only happy to share and was also grateful to Yongsoo for his trust from the beginning. Now if he needed anything, he should just let our hero know. He had almost everything in stock, but Yongsoo was in no hurry to overuse someone else's generosity. He had enough of what Jongyum had done for him, clearing the way of monsters and helping him get home faster. Literally, after they crossed this bridge, it would only be an hour's journey to his home. Jongyum was happy to hear that his friend would be able to see his family soon. Yongsoo was too, but he also had fears of what he might see there, and he just hoped that nothing had happened to his family and they were safe. Jongyum understood him very well, for he too was worried about his parents and sisters. He wanted to give Yongsoo some kind of gift and noticed his ragged clothes. He shouldn't have come back to his family like this. Besides, the hounds were still continuing their futile attempts, and they had time to solve the clothing problem. The only remaining question was what style Yongsoo would choose. He was already uncomfortable that our hero was helping him even with clothes, but he didn't refuse. Besides, Yongsoo was sure that Jongyum had what he needed: aviator glasses and a cool jacket. Just what a top-class driver needed to drive around the apocalyptic landscape. Just in time, the hounds were almost finished. Just a couple more to go. With a new look, Yongsoo gained an unprecedented confidence, and sure of the truck's durability, decided to head out right away. His movements were fast and precise. Even Formula One drivers would envy him. Jongyum only had time to grab on tightly before Yongsoo pressed the gas. The remaining hounds didn't even try to stop them, and they drove straight down the narrow road. Yongsoo was lightning fast regarding everything about driving. At this rate, he only needed 20 minutes to drive home, but Jongyum needed to hold on tight. Our hero's truck flew down the broken roads as if it were a highway. Poor Jongyum asked Yongsoo in vain to drive slower, and it looked like he was about to throw up. Luckily, his suffering wasn't long.